Hi everyone, it's Henry here, and in this video I'm going to take you through how I've converted and kitbashed and sculpted and mucked around with the new Horus Ascended model that Games Workshop sent us. As some of you might know if you've watched any of our past videos, I'm a big fan of the Badab Wars and the various chapters that were involved in it, and then obviously the Astral Claws who go on to become the Red Corsairs, and as you also probably know, I'm a big fan of all stuff chaos. So this felt like a really great opportunity to just have some fun, really. I love the character Corien Sumatris. I painted him up and converted him and painted him up before in a couple of videos, which I'll link up. And I thought might be fun to see what happens or what could have happened to him after he was killed. It's one of those classic, his body was never found, so sort of leaves it open for you to do whatever. And I figured, if they could put Huron back together, then what would they be able to do with his favourite captain? So this is my take on it. I hope you enjoy it. So let's have a quick look through the base model. As you've seen, the box is huge. I've been using a lot of Forge World models recently, and I actually got back into the hobby through Forge World as well, and I've got to say that this is one of the best kits I've ever received from them. The design is excellent, the casting quality was very good. There's a couple of mould slips that I could spot, but nothing compared to what you often get, and the instructions were excellent as well. So if you fancy picking up this kit, do what you want, go for it. It's going to be pretty easy to paint in sub-assemblies, and therefore it's going to be pretty easy for me to convert up. I've built him up to the first couple of stages. Very simple. The legs just sort of slot in to the hips, and then you pop the torso on, and then I've popped on the top of the left arm. So all real simple, real open, almost gives me like an armature, I guess, to work from. Obviously, much more detailed armature to work from. Now, I'm by no means an excellent sculptor, very much an enthusiastic kit basher, really. I'm just going to have fun with it. But when I took it out of the box and I saw the size of it, as you can see next to Dawn here, I had to do something with it. I didn't really want to paint up Horus. I'm not planning on doing Sons of Horus or anything like that, but I had to do something with him. So how can I turn this guy into a Red Corsair? First thing I want to do is remove any really obvious sort of Sons of Horus insignia. So we've got the wolves on his chest, and then you've got a few of the Eye of Horus over him as well. And then he's got that big chunk of the back of his, I don't know what it would be, the upper torso is missing. So I need to fill that in. But thankfully, the way it's been designed, you can see here the cloak is just a single piece. So that's going to be lovely for someone to paint. Really easy to paint separately, and then it just slots on. And sometimes when this happens, you don't get the detail sculpted underneath, but they have sculpted the detail underneath on this, which is great. So I can just leave it off. The left arm's really easy to play around with because it's two separate pieces to the shoulder pad. The right arm, unfortunately, is the upper arm is built into the shoulder pad piece. You can see here, again, wonderfully detailed. We're going to see some stunning paint jobs, I reckon, on this model for sure. But one of the things I thought a very good way of changing up starting to change up the silhouette of this guy was to obviously change the arms. Would really help me change the whole pose of the body. Now, I've had Argyle towels sat around since he came out and haven't got around to doing him. And I just thought, I wonder what would, whether the bits would be compatible, whether they'd be too small or whatever. And as you can see, they've worked rather well, which I'm really happy about. I'm also much more confident about converting using resin than I am using plastic. Again, just because I'm much more familiar with it. And for years and years with Heresy stuff, you had to convert and kit bash stuff up because we just didn't have it, or it was £200 odd for a tactical squad, so you had to get creative. To remove any of the little symbols, the pupils on the eyes, I'm just using a very, very sharp hobby blade. And the only bit of advice I can really give here is just to take your time, to just shave off tiny little bits at a time. Don't try and do it in a one-er. Again, I'm not an expert by any means on this sort of stuff, but this is just how I go about it, and honestly this is some of the most fun I've had in years playing around with this model, so I really hope you enjoy the outcome of him. I had written down on a pad the sort of process that I wanted to go through, the order that I wanted to do things in, and I wanted to remove the sort of fine details and stuff early on in the process when there weren't all the other limbs on him and other things that I might snap off or break off, or again where there wasn't perhaps putty on there that was going to dry and I was going to end up putting fingerprints in it and things like that. I'm not a particularly patient man when it comes to hobby, so I wanted to do this in a couple of hobby sessions, so planning was really key. Real tiny little thing I did here on his dagger, it's a wolf head on the hilt, because obviously lunar wolves, I guess, and all of that. It was really easy just to blunt the snout and make it look like a panther, which was great because obviously the old tiger claws and astral claws chapter symbols were the panther. So I've already spoken about wanting to change up his arms so I can change the silhouette or the pose of him. One of the easiest ways as well is if we change the direction we're going to look at the miniature from, so the sort of golden angle. So you can see there Horus is sort of striding forwards, most of his body's on show. If I twist the model slightly and then I have his head facing off to the opposite side that Horus's is, we're instantly going to change it up. Now, there's a lot of kits I use in this. I'm not going to lie, there's probably 200 odd pounds worth of kits I've used in this, but I love chaos stuff. When I see it, I buy it, and I have a big bits box for chaos. So I grabbed out my Chosen, I think this was a sprue, because on his waist, the little leather things, is it turges, however you say it, the little leather flappy bits, there's a piece that you have to glue in there that is an Eye of Horus and a moon and all the rest of it. And again, it's too obvious, so I was wondering what I could replace it with. So I just had a look through the Chosen sprue, and there was this nice little Chaos Star sort of buckler. Is it a buckler? Buckle. Buckler's that little shield thing, isn't it? Yeah, I think it's a buckle, whatever. Codpiece, whatever it is. And it fitted in fairly nicely in here, so I just sort of, again, really, really took my time, sharp pair of clippers, and just trimmed it right down. I changed blades 3 times just on this project because I wanted to keep it super sharp. You can see I've glued it in place there. Now, there's a little bit of a gap between the leather bits and the thing, and I didn't really like it. This is how I bent the resin to go where I wanted it. I couldn't get a hairdryer in there. I couldn't really dip that bit in hot water. I'm not suggesting you do this yourself, but I wanted to show you how I've dealt with the issue. So I've heated up a pair of tweezers here at the end of them, and you just push it against the resin. It just warms it up, and you're able to move it there like that. And just gets a little bit more movement in those straps as well, which is really nice. So really happy with how he's coming on. A few little tweaks. I've added an extra skull on his belt there. That actually is on the original model, is elsewhere on the model, but it fit really nice in that space. So again, I'm just trying to make lots and lots of changes to take us away from that original model where possible. There's a few little air holes, air bubbles around the model. We'll just fill those in as we go. But areas like this big chunk that's missing on the back here, I do need to sort out. Now to fill it in, I'm going to use this stuff, Magic Sculpt. I would probably say green stuff or a green stuff milliput mix is better. And if you want someone who really is fantastic at sculpting, you can check out Baz's work. That's Amphiarus over on Instagram. Does some amazing tutorials for us over on Patreon. I'm going to use the Magic Sculpt because it's what I've always used and I'm really familiar with it. I do very, very little sculpting, particularly since we've started the YouTube channel where I'm usually working on things for this rather than my own hobby. So I wanted something I was familiar with. And as I say, I've used Magic Sculpt for 10 years, something like that, but it's just a 2-part putty, Now, once that was filled in, and I'm not worried about it being bumpy because I want it to. Basically, I'm possessing this guy. I haven't really explained it yet, have I? I rather like the idea of a really heavily possessed Corien Sumatris. So he's been possessed, he's been brought back from the dead, and he's now this terrifying possessed Terminator. So where I do apply the putty and stuff, I don't mind if it's a bit irregular. Which is also a great way of meaning I haven't got to be super sharp. I was looking through the Demon Prince sprue, so that's another kit for some clawed feet, and I also found that skulls there with that little badge, and I preferred that as the codpiece bit, so I've just added that in. The Demon Prince kit has got these clawed feet on it, and I was like, right, Corien Sumatris, tiger claws, all the rest of it. It'd be nice to get a bit of nod to that in there, a bit of feline in there. So I'm going to replace one of his feet with one of these claws. And this is the first major sort of snipping we're doing. This is the no going back step of the conversion work, and it's great fun. So once I'd hollowed that area out, I used my snips, used a drill, and just hollowed it out. I fitted the claw in there as best I can, and once I glued it in, it was time to start adding a little bit of putty and just blending it in. Only tips I can really give for this is use small amounts at a time, keep your tool wet, and just work it around. But as I say, Baz's tutorials and classes are fantastic. There will be much better ones, from him than me on this. But hopefully you can see that even if you're just being quick and, as I said, enthusiastic amateur, this stuff's pretty forgiving. And let's be honest, I reckon this type of sculpting is probably the easiest, right? Because you don't want it to be uniform. You want it to look nice and organic. And I think I've got a fairly good eye anyway for composition and stuff like that. So just trust yourself and have some fun with it. So I'm going to fill that in, blend that in, and now we're really starting to suggest, oh, there's something up with this Terminator, something weird here. So there's the claw all sorted. And time to move on to the arms. Now, as I said, it was serendipitous, I think that's the right word, that these pieces they look like they were made for it. So I was really, really happy about that. Also means now I can play around with Argyle Tal and turn him into something else as well, which is great fun. I'm really thinking that this model may turn into an army. It might be the thing I've been looking for. We'll see. I'm not going to put any pressure on it like that, but we'll see. But the posing's great. Him pointing off to the right there is immediately going to change that whole direction of the model. And this claw holding the dead, ripped in half marine is going to be great fun to paint. Do some blood effects and stuff on there as well. So I needed to trim off the two lugs that obviously wouldn't locate with each other, because that was for different kits. Bit too much super glue there, so just wicked a tiny bit off with the cotton bud. Watch out, if you wick a lot off with your cotton bud, it's going to generate heat and smoke and all the rest of it, because it's fabric and super glue, so be mindful of that. But you don't need loads of super glue to fix stuff together. If anything, it slows it down. So a bit of pinning using a bit of brass rod there, drilled into each and just married them up. And then just like with the foot, went in with the Magic Sculpt, just did a little bit of sort of possessed flesh, wiggling around. The stuff that's on the top of his torso now has been drying for an hour or two, which is great. So I went in with my modelling tool and just started to shape it. So I shaped it into the rough shape of the corners and then just sort of moved it around a bit so it bulged and wiggled and looked a bit more organic. For the shoulder pads, a great way to change the silhouette is to take this from modified Cataphracti Terminator armour to modified Indominus pattern, the pattern we all know and love from 40k. And the Demon Prince kit has a couple of these shoulder pads, which is wicked. Incidentally, I was really hoping I'd be able to use the arms from the Demon Prince kit, but it's a bit too big. I think he would have looked a bit daft. That was a real challenge with this model, actually, was he was too big to use a lot of normal stuff with, but too small to use monster stuff with. So yeah, it's a bit of a challenge. Now I need to marry the arm up to the shoulder pad. Thought this would be simple, ended up being one of the longest jobs. So firstly, I couldn't hollow out the pad easily because it's got this big indent where the horn goes. So I have to cut a piece out of the top of the arm. You can see I've already trimmed away or cut away all the trim to narrow the profile down. But now I need to cut that piece out of this arm. So this is another kit now gone beyond return. Great fun. But, I had all this stuff sat around. What's it going to do? Sit in a box and not get painted? Might as well have some fun with it, right? It was a fun conversion. I don't want to think about what it cost. So I've added the shoulder pad in, and again, just like with the feet and the arm, just started adding the Magic Sculpt and creating some of that flesh. Now I've done one load there, I'll let that dry, and then I'm going to do a little bit more. Trophy racks are also a real classic silhouette or whatever you have with the Chaos Terminators. And again, you get some of these in the Demon Prince, the new Demon Prince kit. So all I had to do was trim these up a little bit, glue them on, and again blend them in using some of the Magisculpt. The fact he was possessed just made all this blending in so much easier. At this point, I was getting really excited. I couldn't wait to paint this. It was like, this is going to work. In the head cavity, he's got a few bits of piping which obviously go into Horus's head, but they're quite obvious when it's not Horus's head in there. So again, on the Demon Prince kit, I found a few of these different pipes. I've trimmed them up to get them how I want them, and now I'm just going to plug them in there and then plug them into the armour plates. It doesn't really matter where it goes, he's a demon, right? It doesn't have to make sense. So I would super glue the one end into the resin, and then using plastic glue I would melt the other end of it into the plastic armour panel. Just a very quick and easy way to blend them together. The head gave me one of the biggest challenges. Again, finding the right sizes. Years and years and years ago, I made an Alpha Legion force with a couple of units of possessed Marines in. So I dug them out. They were actually in the tub to be stripped, and they have been for years. So it's not like I'm ruining something I want to play with. And the first one I pulled out was absolutely perfect. For it. As I said, I had wanted to use some other heads. This is off the new demonic Chaos Lord on demonic mount, but they just looked a bit too small, a little too pinhead, which was a shame. But again, I couldn't use larger vehicle heads like Dreadnought heads. I guess that they didn't work, but the possessed stuff was the perfect size, and this was the absolute crowning thing of the whole conversion. This was like, I knew I was going to be proud to show this, which is a relief, because it's a lot of work and quite a lot of pressure. So I've added that head in. That was really, really simple. I just had to snip the little nub off the bottom of it, glue it in, job done. So once that was done, I left it to the next hobby session, and I just went back over all of it, just cleaned it up with my knife, just checked I'd gone, I didn't have any big gaps, everything sort of made sense, and he worked together. Then I gave it a nice coat of grey primer just to marry everything together so we can see what it looks like as if it was a model on its own. And here he is. This is my take on Corien Sumatris Ascended, Corien Sumatris Reborn, whatever you want to call him. Hopefully I'll try and come up with a cool name. That'd be good fun as well. Yeah, I love him. I cannot wait to paint him, which will be the next video. I know I've already done a Red Corsairs paint job. I'm going to try a different recipe for this, and let's see whether we like it more. Who knows? Either way, it's going to be a ton of fun. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I know we don't do many of these sort of kit bashing ones, but they usually go down quite well. So let me know if you want to see, sort of semi-regular ones like this, because I really, really enjoyed doing them. Let me know as well if you've had any ideas of this kit when you saw it, whether it immediately sparked something in your mind like it did with mine, or whether you're just going to paint up Horus because he's a wicked model anyway. So thanks ever so much for watching. Hit the like button. If you're not subscribed, hit that as well. We really appreciate your support. I'll see you next time.